Someone needed a ride, I picked them up. And less specifically, I was looking for someone to do in. The crimes, it goes from May to September. 7th. May 7th, Sunday, to Thursday, September 14th. Then it hops over to January, right? And then to February. It's speeding up. It's coming to a head. It's getting to where, it wasn't a cyclical thing, but it was coming to where it was coming more often. And something I didn't tell a whole lot of people, I guess I did tell in one interview, shortly before it all ended, I drove up to the Bay Area, and I was living there. I was up in Alameda. But I was living with my mother in Santa Cruz and commuting because I had to work up there, and I stayed with a friend. I went out to Berkeley, and I drove Ashby Avenue, one of the places I used to drive, looking for co-eds. And I drove from Highway 80 up Ashby Avenue to Highway 13. The first 2 co-eds I killed were on Ashby Avenue. They were 5'2", slight of figure, you know, we call petite. And one's black hair, one's blonde hair, okay? I'm driving the opposite direction up Ashby Avenue. It's a year later. I'm seeing if I can maintain. I'm not hunting. I'm out seeing if I can maintain. I have a weapon in the car. I have everything else fitting the situation. I'm seeing if I can maintain. If I can just let go of it and maintain and marry this young lady and go on. I go driving up there, and here's these 2 young ladies, 5'2", one's got blonde hair, one's got black hair. They're in granny dresses, and I'm having shit fits because it's like deja vu. And oh my God, and I acted in a way that they wouldn't be paranoid because I'm a young man by myself in this car. I diffused the situation as I drove up. I'd gotten practice at that. All that driving around, it wasn't rehearsing. I made a game out of driving around, picking people up, and later on I discerned that some people wouldn't get in my car because of the situation. I'm a young man by myself, it's unsafe. So I thought, well, gee, that kind of put me off. I'm not doing anything to anybody, so I want to see if I can change that situation where they'll want to get in and I can take them where they're going. Because I know I'm not going to do anything. And I got to where I could diffuse that situation. It's how you're looking. If you look, oh boy, I already start cranking the car over there. They're not going to get in your car because they can see you from half a block away drooling. But if you look at your watch and say, geez, I don't know if I have enough time, and you're kind of in the mirror and looking around, and you pull over, this guy's just a businessman going somewhere, and get in his car, we'll go where we're going. And it's little games I played so they'd get in the car. And then we chatted, and I talked about things, and I found out where their orientations were and their what they used to judge and who could get in and who they could get in with and who they couldn't, right? In that sense, it's been interpreted as what do you call it, rehearsing. It's not true. It's like playing chess and then turning it into something ugly. I played chess casually. I played chess more and more thoroughly till I got very good at it, which was picking up people to where I could make you a bet. I can pick up those 2 ladies, and they'd say, oh man, you're crazy. Those are 2 very crafty young ladies who won't get in a car with a young man by himself, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd win the bet because I knew how to diffuse the situation. Even if they asked, where are you headed, right? And they had a sign saying where they're going, but they'd ask, or even if they didn't, they'd say, where are you headed? And I had ways of developing it to where they wouldn't get suspicious. But I didn't mean I was going to kill them. It meant I was playing a game. And then later, when I started killing people, I used that against them. But initially, it was just a hobby, it was a habit. It was trying to fill in the blanks of 5.5 years of not being in society. I missed that flower child generation. I missed the entry into Vietnam, all that stuff. And all these kids are like aliens to me. I say kids. I missed 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I'm supposed to be associating with people in their adult years, but I missed a big chunk, so I'm out there trying to fill in the gaps. Find out why these kids are the way they are now, because they were totally different from the kids that I was when I was that age, totally different. And I'm trying to fill the gaps in, and then later I changed that to something ugly. And why? My mother works at the university. My mother won't introduce me to any young ladies at the university because I'm like my father, and I don't deserve to know any of those young ladies. So here she is holding these little girls up there as too good for me. Very special. If anything, I was destroying icons. I was hurting her without her even knowing it. Again, it's that picayune, little petty, ineffectual, I'm getting back at you, but I don't have the heart to tell you what I'm doing. See? Why would I admit those things on a camera? That's embarrassing. It's humiliating.
And how would you select your victims? Were they...
I didn't select them. It was random. And it was also the development of the passion. If I was drove, they died. Like the last two victims. I was so pissed I'd have killed anybody that got in a car.
You said you had a lot of sympathy and empathy towards Marianne Péché when you talked to her. But isn't that strange to say that after you had killed her in such a brutal fashion?
There was a draw. There was a draw to the young lady. It was haunting. I'm not saying I had compassion toward her when I talked to her. I tried to remember what we talked about. In fact, I think what I said about her is that she epitomized what really drove me. She was a haughty young lady. She's kind of stuck up, distant. I look back on it and I see a girl that was not beautiful, she was not plain, she was somewhere in between, and she was caught up in that beauty thing, like kids in the valley are, okay? Valley girls, trying to make something of themselves and exploit little attributes they have and to downplay other ones. And she was playing a little Miss Distant with me. And her friend was very open and her roommate was very open and very country girl talking and stuff. And it's sad because Marianne was the expert at hitchhiking. She had half her life in Europe. She'd hitchhiked around Europe. She'd done it in the United States. She was good at it. She didn't want to get in the car. The other girl, Anita Lucchesa, wasn't a hitchhiker. She'd been raised by her family, don't do things like that, that's totally out of line, and her friend talked her into it. And once she got into it and she saw how much fun it was and they meet the different people and they talk with people, that by the time they're leaving Berkeley, right, it's all about who gets the front seat and who gets the back seat. So she opened the door and asked where I was headed. And it says Stanford right on the sign they were holding up. And I said, I'm going to Palo Alto, I can drop you off. Oh, great. And she jumps in, grabs her stuff, jumps in, opens the back seat up for her friend, who's standing there looking at me long and serious about whether or not, because I could tell at the time, she knows better than to get in. Single adult, it's a coupe instead of a four-door car, so she cannot get out other than through the front seat. So that's all the warning signs of not getting in with a single, in that kind of a situation. All of the things were wrong about it. But when I drove up, I pulled that little stunt of looking at my watch. Do I have time to pick them up? And you wouldn't believe how much effect that kind of thing has. And when she kept staring at me and looking for something wrong in my eyes, I gave this look back like, I don't understand. Why are you looking at me like this? I gave her that back and she says, oh, this guy's a dork. He's innocent as hell. She gets in. Okay. We're driving along and I'm looking at this young lady in the rearview mirror. And I look back at it years later and I'm saying, she kept looking me back too, right in the eyeballs. I'm wearing dark glasses, but they're not totally dark. And I'm realizing now that she could see me looking at her and she was looking right back at me. And instead of saying something to me like, what are you looking at? Or, hey, maybe you ought to drop us off or something like that, she just kept looking back at me. And I'm looking at her and she keeps looking at me. And I'm thinking she's playing this little game. It's not really teasing, so to speak. It's just this little psychological game back and forth that men and women do sometimes. The young girl in the front, Anita, was at one point in the driving, and I'm sure they were doing little looks at each other and little comments that I didn't pick up because I'm driving and looking for places to go. That somewhere in that communication, she gave me this sexy little look, like, oh boy, you're a pretty good-looking guy, da-da-da. And I smiled back at her. But not this hungry, oh yeah, I like to get down with you kind of thing. It was just I smiled back at her and I saw it for what it was. It's an 18-year-old girl that's feeling her oats. She's not doing anything wrong. It's sad and it's real pathetic. But some of this stuff I was getting real caught up in this girl in the back seat. She was, to me at that point, she was really beautiful. She had the most incredible blue eyes, right? She had this really shiny black hair that was turning me on. And I was getting drove because I just kept playing this game of picking people up, and I had plugged in those fantasies of killing people. And, the titillating little fantasies, and I says, geez, I keep walking away from that. And I put myself down as being weak for not being able to do something about that. Right? So I kept driving and driving on myself saying, I got to do something. I got to do something about this.
How were you feeling while you were killing?
Well, you said especially the first two, which were very messy. It was a shock that first time. That horrified me. I did everything stupid, everything wrong, if I were trying to get away with it. It was just really, really dumb. The knife I fell back on, that was a fallback position. I was trying to smother her. That didn't work. And she was struggling against that and arguing with me about it. And I got frustrated, and I reached in my pocket. I had that folding knife, and I pulled it out. And for a lot of years, and I made a point of saying back then with the investigators, when I pulled the knife out and locked it into place, it clicked. And she said, "What's that?" That's a quote. "What's that?" And she was kind of like a naggy kind of thing. "What's that?" And I couldn't figure out why she said that. Like, it's not that big an impact, a little clicking sound behind her, you know, amongst what's going on, and it hadn't been murderous up to that point. It had been an aggravation, and I had her tied up, or handcuffed. And it took me years for it to dawn on me, trying to look at it from different points of view to understand these things, why she said that. You know why she said that? Because I had brandished this gun, and I had cocked it once, and it clicked. So in her mind, very possibly, I had pulled the gun out and was going to shoot her. So she said, "What's that?" And thinking I've pulled the gun out now and I'm cocking it, not realizing I'd pulled a knife out. I still had the gun in my pants. I stabbed her. She didn't fall dead. You're supposed to fall dead. You're supposed to go, "Oh," and fall dead. I've seen it in all the movies, right? Doesn't work that way. When you stab someone, they leak to death. They lose blood pressure, and you stab them more and more and more. You complicate it many times by where you're hitting, the pain you're causing, and the aggravation of the person involved, plus whether or not they leak a little faster. It wasn't working worth the damn. I stabbed her all over her back, and she even turned around. I stabbed her in the side and in the stomach once. Why? As she turned around, I could have stabbed her through the heart. But her breasts were there. And it actually deflected me. I couldn't see stabbing a young woman in her breast. That's embarrassing. I didn't say that to them back then, I don't think. I may have. But that's humiliating to admit that I was that affected by her presence. I stabbed her in the belly. That had to hurt worse. I didn't do it to make it hurt. I was trying to shut her up. And she ended up getting her throat cut. And I learned the term ear to ear, what that meant, because that's the way it went. And she went out of it completely right then. She lost consciousness and died probably just moments after that. But I just backed up out of the car. My hands are covered in blood, and I'm saying, "Oh God, I did it, I did it, I don't believe it, I did it, shit, I've done it. Now I gotta kill the other one." And toward the end, when I picked those two girls up, and I said they were just like the first two, like Marianne Passion and Anita Luchessa, who'd haunted me all this time, and now two more just like them get in the car. We drive up 13, and we get to this figure 8 cloverleaf interchange where it hits 580, and they want to go under the freeway and back up on and head out this way. And out that way, I happen to know just a couple of miles down the road is Palomares Drive, where I took Anita Luchessa and Marianne Passion, killed them. Mills College is back this way, toward downtown. They don't think so. They want to go this way. I'm saying, gee, you don't want to go that way, and I can't tell them why. You do not want to go that way. Mills College is this way. Well, no, we go there, and we know where it's, we live there, and we want to go. And as we're approaching this interchange, I'm saying, no, we need to go in the right lane, get up on the freeway and go downtown. You want to get in the left lane, go under, cross up, and that's going to be another step closer to you dying. Because even if I don't go all the way out to Palomares Road, up 580, if I stop where it starts to go out in the country, and I get back on the freeway, that's where I used to work on the highways. That's one of the places where it's a cul-de-sac. You drive down there, it's a very quiet street, comes down up onto the freeway very sharply, and they're dead if these urges take over. And if I go that way, it's not encouraging me to stop. It's testing beyond where I want to test. We've already gone beyond that by them getting in the car because, geez, it's just like those first two.